Online forms are a target for spammers looking for vulnerabilities in the processing script. The most common attack is known as email header injection, in which the spammer attempts to trick your form into sending HTML email with copies to many people. In this video, I'll create a function designed to block such attacks. In mail process PHP, I'm going to add my new script above the for each loop. And I'm going to begin by assuming that nothing is suspect. And I'll create a variable called suspect and set its value to false. Now this is a Boolean variable, so false must not be in quotes. Next, I'm going to create a pattern to look for typical email headers. And I'll use a Perl compatible regular expression. Perl-compatible regular expressions are a complex subject, but basically what this pattern does is it looks for these email headers content type followed by a colon, or BCC followed by a colon, or CC followed by a colon, and the I at the end makes it a case-insensitive search. I'm going to use these two values in a function that I now need to define, and I'll call the function isSuspect. And it will take 3 arguments. The first one will be val, the second one will be pattern, and the third argument I want to pass by reference. And when you pass an argument by reference, you precede it by an ampersand. I'm going to use this with the post array, so what I need to do is to put in a conditional statement which checks whether val is an array. So if is array val, and then inside the conditional statement I'll use a for each loop and assign val, the current element, to item. And inside this for each loop, I'm going to pass item to the isSuspect function that I'm now defining. So in other words, what I'm doing is I'm creating what's known as a recursive function. What a recursive function does is it keeps on calling itself inside a loop until it's dealt with all the items that it needs to deal with. So in other words, what this will do is it will tunnel down into the post array to find each individual element. So we need to pass item as the first argument to isSuspect, but we use the same pattern and then suspect. And because we're calling the function now, suspect isn't preceded by an ampersand. It's only preceded by an ampersand in this part up here, which is known as the function signature. So as this recursive function keeps on calling itself, eventually the val, which will be item passed through, will no longer be an array. So we've got to something that we can actually deal with. So down here we can have our else clause to actually deal with it. And inside the else clause, I'll use a conditional statement and the preg_match function. Preg_match deals with Perl-compatible regular expressions, and if you get a match, it returns true. So the first argument is the pattern, and the second argument is something that you want to see if it matches the pattern. So it'll be val that we're dealing with this time. So if that condition is true, I want to set suspect to true. And again, it's a Boolean variable, so no quotes around true. So after defining the isSuspect function, I now want to call it. So isSuspect, and I'll pass it the post array and the pattern and the suspect Boolean variable that I've created. Because the third argument to isSuspect is passed by reference, what will happen is if the isSuspect function finds any matching patterns in the post array, this suspect variable up here will automatically be turned to true. And if that happens, I don't want any of the rest of the script to be executed, so I'm going to wrap this for each loop in a new conditional statement, which will be if not suspect, we'll now continue with it. And let's just indent that so it is easier to look at, easier to read. And we need to put a closing curly brace there. So I'm using the logical not operator here with suspect. And what the logical not operator does is it reverses the Boolean value. So if suspect is false, not suspect will be true. So if suspect remains false, that means that we haven't found any suspect phrases in the post array, and so the processing script will continue. But if we do find a suspect phrase, we need to display an error message. So let's just save this page here and then go into the form, and we'll add the error message here. First we'll wrap it in a PHP conditional statement. So PHP, we only want to run this if the post array has any elements. So if post and suspect and then we will put in a warning message here. Sorry, your mail could not be sent. I prefer to use a very neutral message because I don't think there's really any value in antagonizing spammers. So we need to close that conditional statement with a curly brace there and change this into else if. So let's save that and do a quick test. If I put BCC followed by a colon in there, let's see what happens. Sorry, your mail could not be sent. But let's see what happens if I put my name in there and send that. It's now working as normal because we've got the error message for I've forgotten to add my comments. So the processing script now blocks suspect phrases entered into the form fields. We're rapidly approaching the stage when the contact form will be ready to send the user input by email.